Welcome back. My name is Aaron and this is MindScience episode 16. In our previous episode, we talked about the illusion of I, which is the idea that the I that we typically refer to is an illusion that the mind creates in order to have a subject separate from experience to create stories out of. And so in this video, I'd like to take this idea one step further. Now, I often quote from the famous Hindu sage Ramana Maharshi, because his teachings on Advaita, or non-duality, were truly groundbreaking. And perhaps his most prominent teaching was to just continually ask yourself the question, who am I? And then to allow the mind to generate answers for you. I am this, I am that, I am this story, I am that story. And then to investigate deeply whether or not this can actually be true. You cannot be anything that you are aware of, because awareness implies a subject-object relationship. You need an object in awareness, and you need a subject to be aware of the object. So the awareness which knows the object must be earlier, must be more original. So for example, if you walk down the street and ask any old random person, "Hi there, who are you?" They'll reply with something like, "Well, I'm John." To which you say, "I'm sorry, are you saying that you are the letters John? Or you are the sound John?" And they might reply, "Well, no, John is just my name." And you say, "Right, I was asking, who are you?" To which they probably reply something like, "Well, I am this human person that you see before you." To which you reply, "Okay, so you are this body I see in front of me. So 20 years ago, when you were 100 pounds smaller, was that body not you? This is the only you that exists?" To which they would say, "Well, no, I was also that body." And so you can see how ridiculous the question becomes. The more you try to come up with an answer for the question, who am I, the more that the answer runs away from you. Another likely answer is, well, I am my thoughts. And although this is a little bit subtler than I am my body, this too is an obvious fallacy once investigated. Half the thoughts you think drive you completely mad. Are you consciously driving yourself mad? Why would you do that to yourself? Furthermore, if you are your thoughts, then why don't you disappear when your thoughts disappear? You should only exist as long as you're thinking, and once thinking stops, poof, you vanish. Perhaps an even better question would be, if you are the thinker, then why can't you stop thinking? So you can realize this truth on a rational or conceptual level pretty quickly, but this is ultimately not a truth that the mind can comprehend. It must come through an inner realization or a flash of insight where you suddenly become aware of this truth with your whole being. This is why meditation is very helpful for self-realization, because it's a kind of awakening experience in and of itself to sit down and try with all your might to stop thinking, only to watch your thoughts buzz around in your head like an angry hornet's nest. You can also reach states of total silence and find that awareness still exists without thought. There is just an infinite expanse of awareness. It does not think, it simply is. And this is why you cannot predict what thought will appear next, because you aren't the one thinking them. You are not the one beating your heart. You are not the one digesting your food, or circulating your blood, or any of the billions of processes happening right now. The body does it all for you. And likewise, the body also thinks thoughts for you. We call this conditioning. And the ego effect is created when we identify with the voice in our head. It is just as irrational as taking credit for beating your own heart. So in essence, the ego is identification. And so pervasive is this mental identification with thought that we will not question it even when it thinks the most sinister and self-deprecating thoughts. None of us would hang out with another person who talked to us the way that our mind does. But for some reason, since the voice is happening inside of us, we let it get away with anything. And the liberation from this identification with thought is what the Buddha called enlightenment. It is not some magical state of consciousness a person achieves, but simply a profound recognition that the voice in my head is not me. Enlightenment is simply the end of suffering, and it is the mind that creates all suffering. It's like someone who sees a snake lying in the road and is paralyzed in fear. As long as they believe their current perspective, they have to suffer. But after approaching the snake closer, they see that it's actually just a piece of rope, and the fear vanishes immediately. Their suffering was always an illusion, even though it felt completely real at the time. Let's take another example. Suppose I placed 3 pictures in front of you and said, "Can you see these pictures?" And you would reply, "Yes, I can see them." To which I would reply, "Great, so which one of these pictures are you?" And you would say something like, "That's a ridiculous question. I'm not any one of the pictures. I am the one looking at them." But for some reason, we don't seem to have the same clarity with our own thoughts. But are you not also the one who looks at every thought that appears and disappears? You existed before the thought came into being and long after it's gone. So, logically speaking, you must be something beyond thought. And so if one just continues asking the question, "Who am I?" and really looks for themselves, they will discover that they cannot find themselves anywhere. Every answer escapes you and becomes just another illusion. And so the I that we typically refer to is not pure awareness, but a concept of self that the mind creates that we simply overlook and take to be real. And so through this practice of self-inquiry, you will continually come back to the realization that I am not this, I am not that. I am the awareness which knows it. Or perhaps more simply stated, I am the knower. And just like there is not one thing called the dream and another thing called the dreamer, there is no difference between the knowing and the knower. The two are ultimately one. And so from a very fundamental point of view, all we ever actually know is awareness. It is the one thing that can never be removed from us. You can take away any thought, any emotion, any experience or memory, and you still exist. But try and imagine what it would be like to have your awareness removed. You can't even imagine it because if there is no awareness, there is no you. And so this is the secret of unconditional love. The deeper you move into this realization that I am pure awareness, the more you are forced to recognize that everyone else is too. They simply don't realize it. They believe that they are that talking voice in their head, and so they have to act out whatever it tells them to do. But there is only one awareness, and ultimately, all of us are having the exact same experience. Pure awareness, looking out through different filters. And so, in the light of this realization that the eternal conscious principle of the universe is within each and every living thing, you are forced to make a truly astounding realization. Everyone is you. We inherently believe that we are different and separate from one another. But if we investigate our experience, we would find that all of us are having the exact same one. We are all that one mind which sees and knows everything. And the only thing that can remain after this realization is unconditional love. Love removes the boundaries of the egoic mind and allows us to see that your pain is my pain and your joy is my joy. When someone is born, that is me being born in that body. When someone suffers, that's me suffering in that body. And this is why we are so deeply moved by one another's pain and joy. There is truly no separation, and this is what love allows you to remember, that you are everyone. And so whatever I do to another, I do to myself. Because on a deeper level, we know that if their pain was my pain, if their life experience was mine, then I would think and behave exactly as they do. This is what true humility and wisdom knows, that I am the murderer, the thief, and the liar. It is me trapped in there, unaware of truth and blinded from love. I am also the sage and the master who has realized their own divinity and oneness with all that is. So the important question to ask is, how would you live your life if you knew that everyone is you? There would only be room for compassion and forgiveness, kindness and humility. In the light of this seeing, all judgment vanishes, and with it the need for vengeance and anger as well. Love is true perception and the vision of reality as it actually is. Love is the evidence that everyone is you. And forgiveness is the demonstration of this recognition. As it says in A Course in Miracles, the kingdom of heaven is the awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else. And so the essence of true spirituality is not to know or understand everything, but to love everything. Love is the remembrance of God, and one who has mastery of self lives in perfect harmony with life because everything is seen as an extension of self. So there's no longer any desire to cause pain that you would not want to experience yourself. So whether a situation calls for gentleness or tough love, either one is gladly given. And so this is the essence of Christ's teaching to love thy neighbor as thyself. It means that you want for others exactly what you want for yourself. And so if you don't truly love everyone, then you don't truly love anyone. Love is universal and unconditional. It doesn't pick and choose. It cannot give part of itself any more than the sun can shine in some directions. And so most of what we call love is actually just us trying to get something. And as long as you want something from someone, then you cannot truly love them because you're in the mode of taking rather than giving. Most of us are waiting for the world to earn our love. First, you shape up and behave a certain way, and then I'll love you. But if you can't love your enemies, then you can't really love your friends either. Because in truth, the way you are with anything is the way you are with everything. Meaning that the way you treat those who oppose you is the surest reflection of who you really are. So there are not two different ways to love. There is only one. And this is the secret of unconditional love, that everyone is you. So you either love everything or you love nothing.